Hey everybody, this is Jason from Jason Berkman Photography, and today I have a very special video for you. We're going to talk about the X-E4. Now, it's a very interesting time in Fuji land. I shoot all Fujifilm cameras because I just fell in love with the brand and that's what I use. I was Canon, I had Sony, and I kind of settled on Fuji. So, yeah, I know a thing or two about Fujifilm cameras, but right now it's a very, very interesting time. I've bought and sold Fuji cameras before, but it's really interesting. We have new sensors, we have new cameras, we have new lenses, we have a new app that just came out. I actually did a whole video on the X-E4 and I had to redo it because the Xs-20 came out. That's a whole other ball of wax because when we're talking about the X-E4, it's really about the niche, or it's really about the enthusiast who's going to be interested in this camera. So that's why I'm going to talk about the elephant in the room first and talk about who this camera is for before we go into all of the information about the camera. Because this is really the most important thing. Is this camera right for you? So if it's about specs, if it's about video creation, or if it's about content creation, this is not going to be your camera. The Xs-10 was an amazing camera. I loved that camera. But when I bought it right before actually the X-E4 came out. And so when the X-E4 came out, I was like, oh my gosh, I fell in love with the aesthetics. It's the same thing that I fell in love with when I got my X-T3. That was like, oh my gosh, I love the vintage styling and the dials and everything on top, and I just love the way that it looked and love the way that it felt, and it really changed my whole outlook on cameras and really enhanced my my love for photography. It really made me want to go out there and shoot, and that's really kind of the cool thing about the aesthetics of these cameras. But the Xs-20 is a whole different animal. I love the Xs-10 for its functionality, for what it did. And I really wanted this one for the way that it looked and the way that it would make me feel to have this camera. Because it had the same sensor, it had the same image quality, right? But the Xs-10, there was just something about it that it just didn't give me that feeling that I knew that this would. But it was really hard to get this thing, and it was more expensive than I could afford at the time, so I did the next best thing. I got an X-E3, which is a cool camera. It's great. It has the previous sensor in it, so the one that is in the X-H1, which is really great, or the X100F, but it doesn't have any kind of articulating screen whatsoever, but it had a lot of the buttons that you get with the X-T3 minus the D-pad and stuff like that. The focus switch right here, which a lot of people wish was on the X-E4, but I wanted that vintage styling. I wanted that little rangefinder, and I really liked the X-E3. Now this thing has the thumb grip, and it has the handle grip, and it has like this bottom extra grip, so it makes it kind of a little bit more bulky than the X-E3 is supposed to be. The X-E4 is a complete departure from that. But if we were going to talk about functionality and overall what's the better content creation camera or photography camera, I'm going to have to say that the Xs-10 was very similar to this. I was willing to forego the stabilization and the flip out screen and all those things, and the hefty grip for the X-E4 for the photography aspect of it, for the aesthetics, the way that it looked, the way that it made me feel when I have this camera, because it is a thing. The Xs-20 has us in a completely different realm. As far as content creation, vlogging, video, and the photography specs, it is an all around. When it comes to video, it has 6K open gate. Those kind of things that, like, if you're a video creator, you may never need another camera again. It is basically the Xh2S in that little tiny body with better battery life than the Xs-10, better stabilization than the Xs-10, and it has the same sensor as the Xs-10 and the X-E4, but it has the new X processor 5, which gives you better autofocus. So overall, it's just a way better camera than the X-E4 or even the Xs-10. Now, if they come out with an Xe5, ooh, that's a whole other ball of wax. That would mean it would have to have IBIS and it would have to have a bigger battery. But let's go outside of the hype of the Xs-20. The Xs-20, I'm just going to say this first and foremost outright, is a way better camera than this. This is really about what the Xe4 does for you when you're shooting with it. So the first thing we're going to talk about is the form factor, because this is the reason why we get the X-E4. We already know that the image quality is great. We already know that it has all of the bells and whistles that most Fujifilm cameras have. Why would we get the X-E4? It's all about the size, the form factor. Look at this thing, it's tiny. It has that vintage styling. You have your shutter speed on the top with your exposure compensation, and it has a very minimalist style as opposed to the X-E3. Has a lot less buttons. There's only 2 buttons here with a joystick, no D-pad. I mean, all you have is your menu OK button and you have your display back button, that's it. And on top, you have the delete and drive button, the play button, and your autofocus lock, and that's it. You don't have the selector in the front for your focus modes. You don't have that in the front, but you do have a function button right here that you can assign, and I assign it to ISO. So I have my ISO right here, my shutter speed right here, and my aperture right here, my exposure compensation right here. It's really, really simple layout. So that was really kind of, I think, the point that Fujifilm was trying to make, was that this is a minimalistic camera, photocentric, photo first camera. That's not to say you can't use this for really great video. It is 8-bit video and it's 4K 30. So overall the Xs-20 is a way better camera than this, but that's not why we buy this. We buy this for the aesthetics. We buy this for the form factor. I mean, this little tiny guy with this 27mm is just the perfect photo, out and about, you know, documentary photos with your family, out in the street doing street photography. This is the perfect lens, perfect setup. It kind of looks like the X100V with that little pancake on there. I typically have the 23mm 1.4 on this thing 100% of the time. Anything larger than that is going to look weird. Yeah, I've actually had the 50mm 1.0 on this and it looks really weird. You have a connection for the mic. Yeah, you have a micro HDMI and USB-C, and that's basically it. It's really, really simple layout. You don't have anything for a headphone jack or anything. This is not a video first camera. This is a photography first camera. That's who's buying this, is somebody who loves the aesthetics, the feel, and they're literally doing photography, maybe a little bit of video. It has this selfie screen, but there's no IBIS in here, so I'm not going to vlog with this thing. I might have it on a tripod, but if you want to use a sound and plug a mic in there, then the hot shoe is right there and it blocks the screen. So you have to find another way to mic up your video. It's kind of silly, you know, unless I'm like vlogging this close to me and the sound might be okay. If I'm using an external recorder or something like that, that would be okay. Other than that, I don't even use this. But it's great for street photography. If I bring it down like this and just flip it up, this is really cool for street photography. I use this all the time, and it's like kind of like the X Pro 3. So that's the really cool thing about the screen. The selfie screen is just silly to me. If you're gonna use it for video, you should have IBIS. Otherwise, and a way to hook up a mic so where it's not in the middle of the screen. Yeah, it's pretty silly. Image quality, what can I say? It has the same 26.1 megapixel sensor as the X-T3, the X-T4, the Xs-10, the X Pro 3. They all have that same amazing image quality. You have the same film simulations in here. So what can I say? I've been using this sensor ever since the X-T3. So it's just an amazing sensor and you can't lose with this thing. So overall, let's talk about the build quality. I don't know if I talked about the build quality. I've had this thing in snow, rain. I've had this thing in conditions it shouldn't be in. It's not weather sealed, but for some reason, this thing survived like a champ. It can be a little bit plasticky. When you bring the viewfinder like this, there's like a little flap right there with a connector. I just keep it close to here. I don't let it disconnect, but I also don't get direct water or snow or anything on this thing. So it holds up pretty well. If they were to make this camera, this X-E4 with IBIS, with a bigger battery in the same form factor and weather sealed and 6K open gate, this would be the perfect camera. All right, that's all I have for you guys today. Please like and subscribe, hit that notification bell. If you have any questions or comments or anything, leave them in the comment section below, and I will see you later. Peace! The song used for this video was Quicksand by Centershift, my good friends from Los Angeles, on Auspicious Records. You can find them on Instagram at centershift_OG. And their new single, The Ride, comes out June 21st for summer solstice.